Alright guys, so welcome to today's video, and in today's video we will work on this One Piece game right here, and we have stopped with our sword in the last episode, so we have created it within Blender, and in today's video we are going to script it, means we are going to create a tool which makes us equip this sword, and we are going to script this sword GUI in the left bottom corner. So the exact same thing which we have already done for our combat. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. Of course, this menu right here, which just appears in the left bottom corner and which shows you what kind of moves you're able to have and do. Okay. So first of all, or the first thing is that we want to make this sword, or we want to turn it to a tool. Okay. So how can we do it? We should select everything and shrink it down first of all. And you can always use a dummy to check the size. Okay, so to check whether the size is alright or not, because I personally tend to leave it too big, as you can see right now. So this sword is still a little bit too big. We should take care of that. Maybe? I don't know. Maybe a little more. Yeah, okay, so that's actually alright. So let's keep it this way. And yeah. Come on, select the sword. Alright, so we have these three parts right here. And we need to make one out of these three. Okay, so how can we do that? Or you could ask in the first place, why do you want to have one part instead of three? Of course, it is much easier to take care of one part than of three parts. So how do you unify them? So a method to, let's say, unify, well, it is not actually a unifying method. You just put, or you just decide on the main part. Okay. In this case, I would recommend you to select the handle as your main part. So, of course, call your main part handle, that's important, and then move all of the other parts inside of that main part. Means the handle parts and the blade. So you move them inside of your handle. The next thing is that you add a weld constraint and weld everything together. So remember, part 0 is your handle, and part 1 is either the blade or the handle parts. Now, the next step is to select all of these parts, make sure that they are not anchored, and can collide is false. Alright, and that's actually it for the preparation. Now, you guys can move on by creating a new folder instead of the replicated storage. Let's call this one Swords. And wait, let's create another folder instead of this swords folder. So right click, insert object, and insert a folder, and call this one katana. So this sword right here is going to be our katana, and move your handle instead of the katana. All right. So the next thing which we are going to do is that we are going to, well, I'm going to clone this combat tool, and I'm gonna call it sword. And well, it is going to be much more difficult from now on. Script parent. Wait. Basic slash. So I'm just gonna change some minor stuff right here. For example, basic combat to basic slash. And we can actually keep the rest because the rest seems to be alright. Now rename this remote event to sword. Rename the script to sword server. And let's get rid of these sounds maybe. Or wait. Yeah, we should get rid of them. Alright, now, in order to have our own move GUI, so moveset GUI in the left bottom corner, we can go to skills frame and clone this combat frame and call it swords. Or sword without the S at the end. And wait, I have to check the script. Skill key, UI list layout. All right. Require combat skills. Okay. So, clone this combat skills module script and call it sword skills. I'm gonna explain all of these single steps and the ideas behind of them, so do not worry. And after you have cloned this one, go to your sword frame right here, and then go inside of the local script, and of course change the first line to sword skills. So let me tell you what I have just done. So by cloning this combat tool, I have just created a new tool, okay, for the sword. And we are going to use the same methods and ideas we have already used for the combat. So let me test this out, and you guys will probably notice an issue. Yeah, okay, so never mind this error. So we have created this sword tool right here, okay? But we do not have a sword inside of the tool. So how is this going to, or how does this have to do with swords? So let me explain you my idea of this sword creation, of the sword move creation. So basically, you guys are probably used to have tools in which you already have the sword model inside. So let me give you some examples from the toolbox. Let me add Mihawk's sword, for example. Let's put it inside of the starter pack. So you guys are, this is just to demonstrate. I'm not gonna steal it or anything. So you guys are probably used to examples like this, okay? So you actually have a sword model inside of your tool from the beginning, okay? So that's probably your idea of a sword move or sword move system whatsoever. But in my case, you do not have a sword model inside of the tool. The sword model is just being attached to your hand later on. Yeah, through a certain code, which is just doing some complicated stuff, which we get to later on. Okay, thanks to this guy who has uploaded the Yoru model. So what's your name? Pokit DY, thanks to you. Okay, so what is going to happen? So how are we actually going to obtain our sword, and how are we going to fight with it? So my idea is that every player gets 3 new stats, okay? And these 3 new stats are the first sword, the second sword, and the third sword, okay? And as I've already told you, you do not have your sword model inside of your tool from the beginning. But if you equip your tool, then a certain code, which we'll script later, will check for your first sword. And if you have a first sword, it is going to clone it inside of your character, and it is going to weld it to your hand, okay? And this is going to create the illusion of an equipped sword. So that's my idea for this sword moveset right here, guys. And we are going to work on this now. But before we get into it, I want to do some changes inside of the sword skills module, because we still have these combat moves inside, and we should get rid of them. So I'm just gonna create some random names here. So /wave. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it. Lion's song. Hound Phoenix. I can't remember the proper names of those moves. I'm just randomly typing something in. I just memorize randomly. Okay. So we'll get to those moves later on. Forget about them for the moment. We are now going to work on the core part of our sword moveset. So I have already told you about those 3 stats I wanted to create, and I'm gonna create them now. So where is it? Yeah, okay, let's... Alright, so let's create them right here. So, you guys should know about this script. This script is responsible for creating our actual stats like the strength, the defense, the speed, and the will. And we are now going to add some more lines to it, which creates, yeah, some more stuff. So our first sword, second and third sword. And wait. X to change. Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah, I think that I'm gonna use a for I do loop as I have already done down here. So we do not have something completely new. And I'm gonna explain it to you, so do not worry. Okay, yeah, so that's actually it. There's nothing more to it. So, let me explain you what I have just done, okay? So, this line right here creates our loop, okay? And this loop loops 3 times because we have defined the 3 right here. So it starts at the first loop, and then the second loop, and then the third loop, okay? And then it just continues with the code down below here. And what happens within these loops? So we are basically creating a new variable, which we assign to a newly created instance, which is a string value, and which is being put inside of the folder. So this folder right here is, of course, our stats folder, which is inside of our players, and which also contains all of these stats you guys should know from the last episodes already. And yes, so that's all regarding this line. Now the second line right here sets the name of this string value, and the name, now it gets pretty interesting. So the name consists of the word sword with an addition, and this addition basically is our index, so our I. So what is our I? The I determines the amount of loops which we are currently at. So I is at 1 by default, means the first loop. And after the first loop has been completed, I increases to 2, means I equals 2, okay? And when the second loop has finished, I increases to 3, means the third loop. So I is either, in this case, 1, 2, or 3, means our name, our sword stats name in the first loop is sword 1. And the second loop, it is sword 2. And in the third loop, it is sword 3, you know? So that's basically the difference between all of these 3 stats. So they all share the same class name, the same parent, the same default value even down here. So this line right here determines the default value of all of those 3 stats, but the only difference is at the name. Okay? And that's the interesting part about it. So this line right here, as I've already told you, just sets a default value, okay? So why default? Because if you do not change this value, it just stays default, and it either is only changed when it has been loaded down here, or when the game changes it later on. Alright, yeah. So let's test this out. Let's see if it actually works as expected. As you can see, sword 1, 2, and 3, they all have nothing as their value. Okay, so let me change sword 1 to basic, no, to just katana. So make sure that the value of the sword you want to assign to a certain sword stat equals the name of the swords folder you have put inside of this swords folder inside of the replicated storage. Okay, so if you want to apply the katana as your first sword, so sword 1, you need to make sure that they both share the same stuff. Okay, doesn't matter if it is as name or as the value down here. So make sure that both right here are the same. So katana and katana. Okay, no false spelling or anything. Okay, so you need to be 100% sure. All right, so now our first sword has became our katana. Let's stop this thing and let's see if it saves as expected. And if it does so, then we can proceed. As you can see, it has saved. All right, that's a good thing. Now we can proceed with actually applying the first sword to our hand. And it is going to get more difficult in the next episodes, because after we have done everything for the first sword, we need to do everything for the second sword style. Means for the first and second sword. Means you need to apply 2 swords to your character. Okay? And it gets more difficult with 3 swords. So we need to establish a system, probably when you press a certain key, that your sword styles just increase from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, and from 3 to 1. Okay, so, but that's topic for the following episodes. So equipped. Yeah, okay. So this part right here is actually important, because as you can see, when our tool has been equipped, certain stuff happens, and you guys should know about this certain stuff. So we need to add something additional to it, which is of course going to be that our sword model inside of this folder is applied to our hand. So let's work on that. No. I was about to script the whole thing inside of this local script, but I totally forgot about filtering enabled. Yeah, local sword style. So let's create a new variable called sword style. And this one is going to be at 1 by default. And what we are going to do is that we are... Wait, combat? Wait, script combat, no. Script sword. Yeah, so this is supposed to be script sword. Okay, so make sure that those fire servers work properly. So rename the remote events to sword. Okay, do not forget about that. So script sword fire server. Okay, so what we want to do in order to apply those sword models to our character is that we need to clone them and parent them and weld them to our hand. And in order to be able to do that, we need to code it, okay? And we are unable to code it inside of a local script. Therefore, we need to code it inside of a script, a server script. And therefore, we need to use filter enabled. And we are just going to do the following, okay? So we are going to have our first argument, which is going to determine the task. In our case, apply sword style. And the second argument is going to tell the script what kind of sword style. So is it the first sword style, the second, or the third? And this is done by passing this sword style variable, which we have defined up here, and which is at 1 by default. And you guys could probably think of it. So of course, in order to change the sword style, we have to change this sword style variable, okay? And we are going to do that by pressing a certain key, as I have already told you. But that's topic for the next episode, of course. Okay, so by doing so, we can proceed with this stuff right here. And I'm just gonna delete everything right here to the bottom almost, because they are not relevant to us anymore, because they have to do with the combat. And do not worry, we are going to work on this basic slash move later on. Probably not in this episode, but the next ones, maybe in 2 episodes or so. Okay, now we are going to add a new task called apply sword style. And this one is going to differentiate between all of the single sword styles we have. Means the first, the second, and the third sword style. And we, of course, in this video are only going to cover up the first one, if we still have enough time left, but I think that the time should be sufficient. Okay, so our second argument right here is covered up with this val1. So keep that in mind. Okay, so what happens if we want to apply the first sword style? So Of course, we need to clone the sword. And in order to clone the sword, we need to refer to it. And how do we refer to it? So we already know that this sword right here... Wait, let's get rid of those variables. Let me establish some new variables. So sword 1. Wait, let's also change this first line. So change combat to sword. So sword 1, player stats sword 1. And you just do the same for sword 2 and 3. 2, 3, 2, 3. All right. Now, we need to refer to this folder first of all. And of course, to the replicated storage because that's the parent of this folder. And then to this folder. And then it becomes a little more difficult because we will have multiple swords, okay? And as I've already told you, we have those sword stats, and everyone has or could have a different stat, okay? So a different value, I mean. So one player could have the katana, the other one could have the arrow, the other one could have a cutlass, and therefore you need to differentiate. But in order to keep it general, or to keep it general, we can do the following. So in our case, we only have one folder, okay? But we could just do the following. So sword 1 value. So what does this express? This basically expresses that the value of your first sword stat right here is being took, and it's going to be applied right here, which refers to one of those folders inside of the swords folder, in that swords folder at the end, okay? In our case, only the katana, because we only have the katana as for now, okay? And we can now refer to the handle inside of it, and we can clone it. Now we can parent this one to our character, and we can create a new belt. So instance that new belt. We can put this one inside of our sword, and W port 0 becomes our left hand, let's say, and W port 1 becomes our sword. And I'm gonna explain this one further. I just want to see if it works as expected. And it did work. Okay, yeah. Perfect. So what happens right here? So we are cloning the sword and we are putting it inside of our character. Well, we are basically cloning this handle part, okay? With all of its components inside. We're not cloning the folder, but we are cloning this handle part. We are putting it inside of the character, and we are creating a new variable W, which represents a veld, and this veld is responsible to attach its part 1 to its part 0, and we are putting it inside of this sword handle, but it actually does not matter where you put it inside. The only thing which matters are part 0 and part 1. So part 1 right here determines, or is, the part to which something is being attached onto. In this case, our left hand. Okay, so our character's left hand. Part 1 is the part which you attach to something. In our case, the sword handle right here. That's basically everything regarding this veld. We now need to work on the positioning. That's actually pretty easy. So we first of all need to rotate everything. And yeah, that's the part where you have to experiment around, because things will get a little bit, well, not difficult, but you just have to experiment around, as I've already told you, so. All right. Yeah. Pretty good. Okay, so let me explain you what has just happened right here. So C-frame angles, of course, influences the angle of your C-frame of the sword's position at the end. And we tell the script to turn the sword by 90 degrees on the x-axis. Just to leave the y-axis alone, and to turn the sword on its z-axis by 180 degrees. You guys probably barely have an idea on how this is going to look like. I personally, I feel the same way, so I cannot really imagine. Well, I have a small idea on how this is going to look like, but there are probably people out there who have a better visualization on this whole C-frame topic. So when it comes to C-frame.new, I lose every idea I have about it. Okay, so I really cannot imagine how it is going to look like. Therefore, I have to experiment around that a lot, and I have to try out every value. Okay, till I find the perfect angle. But let's move on with something else. So C-frame.new, as I've told you, and so we have found the correct rotation, the correct angle, but we still need to make the whole sword model actually fit inside of our hand. So as you can see, it now is, yeah, you guys can see it, so we need to move it down. Okay, and yeah, that's the perfect positioning for our sword right here. And as you can see, we have already unlocked every move, but we are of course going to deal with them later. And yeah, that's it. So that's the way on how you can apply your sword 1 to your hand. And there's still too much to show. So for example, when I unequip everything, we still have the sword in our hand. So everything regarding the de-equipping, the change of our sword styles, etc, etc. So we will deal with that in the next episode, guys, which is about to be in a week. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. If you have liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe, share this video to all of your friends. Yeah, give me feedback in the comment section, guys. Check out my second channel, check out my Discord server, check out the description, because there's much information on this whole topic. Alright? Yeah. Take care. See you in the next video, guys.